Actually, kind of looks like you.
It does kind of look like him. All right, here we go. Finally got some technical difficulty, but I got a new microphone line, so it should be good moving forward.
Good. Right, what are the comments doing over here?
I don't know how fine it's going to be, but we're going to do it anyway.
All right. Welcome into the Bite Me podcast. Always an adventure. We have, what is that restaurant with the hat like Caleb's wearing today? If you're watching live on YouTube, is that it's the fish sticks, right? Yeah, and then
I'm
Scott
Long John.
You're Long John Silver or Long Silver.
Long John Sliver.
Sliver.
Or you want some yellow enchiladas, Jesse?
Good Lord. Actually, Scott looks a little bit like Cholo right there, right? He's got that going on, and I don't know what Dean is looking like. If you're listening to the podcast on the podcast streams, appreciate that, but you can't really see what we're talking about. So Gordon's, somebody said. Yeah, it's Gordon's. That's what it is. But we will try to explain it as best we can. This is
you can't see Scott's shorts, but he's wearing them long khakis with them high white socks.
Yes, he is. Yes,
Scott got back from Burning Man.
Coachella. He got back from Coachella. All right, so this is Bite Me podcast. A little bit of a weird start. I'm kind of glad I didn't listen to what they were talking about when I couldn't get my microphone going, but that's neither here nor there. I'm sure they'll.
No, your microphone was working. Your headphones weren't.
My headphones weren't. That's why I changed.
We could hear you the whole time.
Yeah, well, I'm glad I didn't talk too bad about you. And you know what happened?
We would have told you that.
I which call? Which one of the calls that you guys made?
Called you
17 times. I turned my laptop so I could show Dean his new fly rods he's getting from Sawgrass, and then all hell broke loose after that. But here we are. It is the Bite Me podcast. We've got a lot to cover. And first thing I want to talk about, it was not on the rundown, so I'm going to kind of sideswipe you guys with this. But of course, don't forget to subscribe to the podcast. Don't forget to join the Facebook group page. It's tons of fun like this every single week. Tuesdays, we record live on YouTube. And we post it on all your podcast platforms Tuesday by about 6 o'clock. Not going to lie, probably be closer to 6:30 tonight, but that's okay. We'll get it done. It will be posted wherever you go. So first of all, what's everybody been up to? Why is everyone, especially Caleb, in a silly mood today?
We're just wearing our patience hats, John.
Yeah, but you came in with yours.
I'm very excited about mine. I can't wait for an event.
Hey, look, watch this. Hey, wait about 30 minutes, because look, I'm taking my medicine with a beer.
Medicine with a beer. Now that's a tease for the middle part of our show this week. So speaking of which, it's funny you
wait
did
till
that
kicks in.
It's funny you did that, Dean, because this was not on the podcast, but I was actually here about 3 o'clock just piddling on my laptop, and then, like I said, all hell broke loose, and I was scrolling through some stuff, and I saw that video, and I think it's been posted. Well, it's been posted everywhere, but I think it was posted on our group page of those two people parking their boat, just falling down drunk. I'm sure you guys saw that. One steps onto the dock and then stumbles back and into the boat, and then the other guy tries to help her, but he's drunk too, and he falls down. We've all seen that video or very similar videos. And it got me to thinking about, like, now these guys don't drink when they're captaining, and I don't drink when I'm on the boat either. But it got me to think, because Dean, you were telling me a story about a couple of friends of yours, and you don't have to mention their name, that they downed like a whole bottle of tequila when you took them out on a trip.
Drew and Kristen.
Okay, we are going to mention their names. Okay, so shout out to Drew and Kristen. So I was going to ask you guys about any similar stories where, some clients, some guests, some friends were just plastered drunk. What was the story? They drank a bottle of tequila on like a 7 hour trip.
Every time they go with me. And
every time. And
they, hey man, I'm driving the boat. Have a good time. You're in good hands. But I mean, when they get a day off of work, man, they like to have a good time, and they come down for the weekend, and they like their tequila. And I mean, believe me, and it's just that I like my tequila too. That's just an impressive display of alcoholism. I mean,
alcoholism. But it
no,
sounds like they're professionals that they can.
And that's an extreme. But Drew, he takes everything to the extreme. I mean, I see some really professional beer drinkers on the boat too. You know that. I mean, they fishing and drinking beer. It kind of goes together, but not when you're driving the boat. And I mean, I have a strict policy on myself. I don't put myself in risk, and even I wait till the boat's done.
Yeah, no, I think all of us do, which is always smart. But you've seen some things, I'm sure, Caleb. You've seen some things.
Yeah, most of mine involves illicit things. There's not a whole lot of drinkers that come on the boat with me. There are some tokers.
How do you handle that? Because I've told the story on here. I freaked out one time when I got pulled over. Well, it was as I was launching, and the game warden came on, and one of my buddy's buddy, had like a bag of weed in his tackle box, and it was unbeknownst to me, and I freaked out. I was like, dude, you got me in a lot of trouble. How do you handle that?
Well, as long as it ain't under the throw cushion, the whistle, or the fire extinguisher, I think you'll be all right. I had one dude, he gets on my boat, and it is what it is. I'm up there in the tower, y'all are down there, whatever. And he goes to ripping on his tiny beer, and I'm watching it go on. We get out and we wade, and I'm just watching it. He keeps just going and going and going. And when we first got out, he is probably about 50 yards from me, and he is working the quirky just like a topwater. Like, imagine a dude standing in the water, twitching his wrist, working a topwater, right? And about every 5 minutes, I'd look over, and the way he's working it had changed a little bit. And after about 30 minutes, I looked over, and his arms are no longer moving, and he is like flexing at the waist really fast, working his And I told the guy with me, I'm like, we have got to go get this guy. He is going to drown. And I did. I'm like, all right, we're fishing out of the boat now, guys.
Just don't fall out of the boat.
I don't know if motor skills got worse or better, because I thought he was still working the lure.
He's just bending at the waist. Scott, you what have you seen on yours? Because I was thinking about that. I know they've seen similar things like this.
I only had one pair that really got going. And everybody, I guess a lot of guys bring a few beers and whatever.
Yeah.
No big deal. But these two showed up, and I was launching out of Louis back then in Galveston. And the guy who ran Louis would open up early in the morning. He'd be getting everything cleaned up. There's a little bar, there's a little bar and restaurant in there.
Yeah.
And the guys asked me as they pulled up, they said, hey, man, is he open in there? We need to use the bathroom. And they went in. I said, yeah, he's always in there. He might have some coffee ready too. He usually had a pot of coffee going. They don't come out for a while. I go in there, and they're 3 beers deep apiece. It ain't even daylight yet. And then they load the boat, and there ain't room in my ice chest for ice. They got just beer. I mean, they we're going on a little Poland skiff for a half-day trip. They brought a case of beer, and that case was gone.
Yeah.
At 11 o'clock. I mean,
hey man, you never know when something could go wrong, and you got to be prepared out there. One of the best ones I saw that I was not involved in, a boat pulls up to the ramp, and I don't know what took place in the boat, but the 2 dudes stepped out of the boat, and the other one just knocked the shit out of the other one into the water and said, maybe that'll sober you up. And then he just walked away, left the dude in the water. But yeah, I didn't.
One at the dock, that big old boys, 2 big old boys, and they're trying to dock the boat, and they're drunk, and they can't get it docked. One of them is driving, the other one's trying to grab a hold of the dock. Well, he finally gets a hold of it, and the other guy puts it in reverse and starts pulling away from the dock. Well, the other guy, he's taking the dock with him, I guess, and he just does that stretch out, and then he just belly flops in the water. Now he's in the water at the dock, and he's trying to scramble around there. The other guy leans out of the boat to try to help him get in, and he falls in.
That's what I'm talking about. Like, that's the stuff.
And their boat's floating off, and they're both in the water screaming and hollering at each other. And I just went, got their boat, pulled it over there to the dock, and then threw a rope and pulled them up onto the dock.
I've seen some. The funniest one to me was a guy got stuck in some shallow water in Trinity Bay when I was fishing Trinity, and it was mud. And so I went over there, tossed them. And as soon as I got there, I realized they were just falling down drunk. And so they were trying to catch the rope about 75 times. And then they finally started trying to swim to the rope in about 8 inches of water. So they were covered in mud. I was trying to keep my boat clean. I finally got them the rope, and they got on their boat. I said, I'm going to pull you in. I didn't want them driving, and I said, I'm going to pull you in, because it was just right by the ramp there in, I forget where it was. But anyway, so I pull them in, and they get out of the boat, and they look like head to toe just covered in mud. I said, y'all have a good one. Be careful. So clearly they got stuck because they were drunk, and they couldn't get out because they were drunk. And then they were trying to swim in 8 inches of water. And I was like, okay, well, at least it's not on their blood's not on my hands by any stretch. So
just as a warning to anybody that comes to Port O'Connor, if you come down here on a holiday weekend and you're going to run over there and go to the jetties or go to the Sunday Beach, and you're coming back, you're going to get stopped.
Yes, you are.
If you go to Sunday Beach, they stop everybody coming back from there.
Mm-hmm. And it's no joking matter, man. I mean, obviously health wise, but also you can ruin your month, ruin your year, whatever it might be.
On the last 4th of July, where everybody was out here at Party Beach in Port A, there was like 5,000 boats or something, music playing, everybody partying, drinking, and the game warden comes by. I never seen a more confused look on a game warden's face in my life. He was like, where do I even start with this crowd? It's like, and he just puttered along and looked at the crowd and went on about his business. But it was like
just kind of giving him a warning, because he can't handle all of them in his boat.
Yeah, he just did a drive by, and but yeah, Party Beach gets pretty crazy on the 4th of July.
Yeah. So what have you guys been doing before getting some of these topics? Caleb, I know you've been doing stuff.
We've been doing some fishing, been doing some videos of fishings, waiting for the freaking. I got all excited. I texted everybody, hey, look, the tide's 2 foot high. This is cool, huh? And then that thing came through, and I was like, well, I blew it out. It'll be back, and it ain't back. But you know what? It'll be back this weekend. I feel it.
I hope so. I hope so. So last week,
take bets on how long till John hits something in his new boat.
Oh man, no way! I hit something one time, and I'm scarred for life. Well, actually, I've hit stuff more than once, but that one was scarred for life. It looks gorgeous. It's just about ready. I'll be getting it here any day now. So last week after the show, we had a nice conversation with Bill. What's Bill's last name? Harvey. Yeah, I should have remembered that. And it just got me thinking. I was writing down notes. It was so interesting to me because you guys were talking about, and Caleb, you were in it for a little bit, then you had to run. But I am curious. It got me thinking about this, because I think Dean said, maybe it's Bill, the 20 years, that changed the coast. And I went, that sounds like a topic to me. Because, I don't know if you would characterize it as the last 20 years or any specific 20 years. But Dean, I'm going to start with you. And I know Caleb and Scott are going to want to jump in. But I would characterize it as 1985 to 2005, like the 20 years that changed our coast. Would you agree with that, and why?
Yeah, and probably every 20 years has its own characteristics of change and evolution that goes with that. From the middle 80s to the middle 90s, that was pretty dramatic. But what I was speaking of last time, in the last 20 years, just the advancement in technology and boats, the amount of people on the water, the pressure on the resource is exponentially greater than the previous 20 years. And all of those things are taking a toll on the resource out there. But
the thing that, go ahead.
And then the social media craze, that is probably, I don't know if it's the biggest factor. It's not the only factor. It's one of them. but it's combined with all of those to change the fishing world pretty dramatically. I mean, boats, people, technology, social media, all of those.
It was about 20 years ago whenever I decided to start fishing seriously. And
Mm-hmm.
we've definitely seen what happened since I started fishing. It ain't
Well-
the thing there's plenty of fish there. They're all sore lip, John. 2008 is whenever I saw the change. 2000 to 2008. Well, I'm okay. 2004 to about 2012, the Eagleford was going crazy. The Haynesville was going crazy. The Barnett, all kinds of big oil and gas plays around here. A lot of people were making a lot of money, and they all had F-250 jacked up with a flatbed trailer and a Polaris Ranger and a deer lease and all that kind of stuff. And then the oil field faltered in 2008, 2009, and they sold the F-250, they sold the deer lease, they sold the Ranger, and they bought a boat.
Mm-hmm.
And that is like it was like a mini COVID event where everything just started getting hammered. Like Dean said, the social media, it became the cool thing to do anymore wasn't show off your Ranger and your deer lease. The cool thing to do was to show off your shoal water and your stringer of trout. And it's all kind of snowballed since that crash in 2009.
Well, that's what I wanted to ask you about, Caleb, because you're the most recent of you can cover the most recent 20 years. So even from say 05, to 25, like what have you noticed? And I want to get to some specifics with Scott that Bill was talking about in a second. But like, what's been besides obviously the economic turn, which did a COVID effect, as you pointed out. What else have you seen? Because I think it's going to dovetail into what I want to ask Scott about.
Well, I mean, what I've seen personally, I say it and people think I'm joking, but I mean it when I say I caught way more fish back when I didn't know what the hell I was doing. There was grass all over East Matagorda Bay. There was fish everywhere. Everything was kind of left alone. Everything got a chance to rest, and it's definitely taken a downturn with everything. And I don't know if the grass and all that being gone is due to pressure. It could be ducks or something, and I don't know if we ever figured it out. But from 2008, 2010 till today is a absolutely major difference.
Well, Scott, that's what I wanted to get your info on, because you know Bill very well. You've had long conversations. I know Dean has too. So Dean, jump in whenever you can. But one thing that jumped out with me that I hadn't even really thought about, but that's on me. He's talking about the barges, the traffic in the intercoastal affecting shrimp habitat. As we always talk about habitat and shrimp and bait and all that, but he said just those barges, those cuts, have changed things, and that goes back to the 80s.
There's a whole lot of factors that Bill and us, we're in that photo contest together, and we're rooming together out there on the ranch, so we get a lot of time in the evenings to talk about this stuff. The salinity in our bays is higher. The water temperature has increased. They've got the records, and that has affected the shrimp in a very scientific way. Bill explains it, but basically it's harder for the shrimp to grow up. They expend more energy just trying to survive instead of growing. I forgot.
It was the
osmoregulation.
Osmoregulation.
Damn, I knew we learned a big word last week.
I wrote that one down too, Dean. Go ahead, Scott.
So with what it means is the shrimp expend a lot more energy just trying to regulate their bodies. And in effect, it makes the shrimp smaller because they use up more energy just trying to survive than they do actually growing out. So and the shrimp are the base of everything for our bays. That's the main food source. It kind of shows you everything that you need to know. But if you think about it on those terms, all the bait fish are doing the same thing. Every organism out there is having to deal with that.
But what do shrimp eat?
The shrimp eat the plankton and decaying matter and all that. So
I was That was just a pop quiz in the middle of your.
That's the base of it and gets it all started. But he also mentioned in one of our conversations that there was less of that in the bays.
Yes.
Because of the higher salinities and higher temperatures and the various ecological effects that all that's having. And it's just really interesting to sit down with him. I mean, he'll get going that night. Man, you got him fired up. And
I was fired up. The only reason I had to, well, we talked for about 45 minutes, but maybe longer, but I wanted to get to the podcast to go ahead and edit it. But I was like, man, this is really interesting. I mean, the research that they've done, the money they put in to find it, and kind of, and by the way, this is not doom and gloom either, because they're trying to fix these problems, you know.
And so refresh my memory, Scott. Didn't that specific issue in Port Lavaca have to deal with dredging of some channels? And it was the way the water flowed in there.
That's what he was talking about. Yeah, that's why I wrote this down.
Yeah, they widened and deepened some of the channels and extended channels further up into the bay. One of the other things is we've had droughts, and so that we don't have the fresh water coming in like we used to. All that has an effect on the salinities. Bigger opening at the jetties means more salt water is coming in on every incoming tide. Less fresh water coming in because we got the dams, and there's more water usage up above in every part of the state. And so that's affecting the salinities.
And so which presents and so that presents another interesting scenario and question, because the Corpus Christi ship channel, which goes right in between or right adjacent to Ransom Flats, Dagger Flats, BNR, East Flats, all of those flats, that channel in the last 6 or 7 years has been tripled in depth and width. And the tanker traffic that passes through there throws wakes all the way to the causeway, to the bridge. I mean, big rolling wakes, not just a little pulse of water. I mean, it throws rollers. It throws rollers along all the spoil islands out there. So if that is taking place where it's, well documented in Lavaca Bay, it's got to be having an extreme effect in Corpus Christi Bay, in Redfish Bay.
In all the bays, and Kayla, that's where I wanted to get you in on this, because obviously I fished a lot in Matagorda for 20-something years, and after the conversation, I started thinking, I wonder, like, if it would be better not to necessarily build reefs or whatever, but build reefs enough to where there's fewer entry points into like Matagorda Bay or other bay system, but for your purpose, you know what I'm saying? Like, so many people with the shallow running boats are trying to create entry points, and that's just more water flow, and it affects everything,
Yeah, I mean, our barrier islands past Boggy almost all the way to Live Oak are all but gone now. It used to be land for a long ways through that. There would be cuts between them. Now it's just kind of a shallow spot, and it makes me wonder how the oxy regulation is doing.
You almost got it. Osmo regulation.
I'm gonna be honest. I started seeing Tweety birds and tuning out when y'all started using those words like that. I was thinking about Greg Maddox throwing a complete game against St. Louis. That was cool. That's where my head went. I'm sorry, I'm a shit host. I get it. And there's several. East Bay, I mean, can't really make a new way to get into it, but West Bay has a couple spots to get run over that used to be real shallow, and now you can get out of them. But I've often wondered, what all that north shoreline going away is really doing to East Matagorda for sure.
Yeah, just close that off. And the other thing, Scott or Dean, whoever wants to hop in, is he talked a lot about seagrass restoration and protection, and that's the good news. But how? How in all these cuts and channels, is it the same as what I was talking with Caleb about? Maybe shut off some of these entry points.
How are you going to shut them off?
Build a reef like on the entry points, so the water doesn't cut through. I'm not talking where the barges go. I'm talking about the cuts that they make.
They've been doing that, and they've got all the artificial islands all over the place. But double-edged sword. whenever they make those, they're getting that soil that spoils. That's
Yeah.
from digging the channels deeper.
Mm-hmm.
So, I mean, are we really getting anywhere? Yeah, we have affected the bay to a point where I don't know that it can turn around. You know, hopefully we can stop it from getting worse, but I don't know that we can fix everything that we've screwed up.
And so here's one interesting comparison that I've made over the years, or I try to find a positive in it. So whenever I look at the last 20 years of Redfish Bay and Corpus Christi Bay here and seeing what has taken place with the industry, the port, and the channels and all of that, it creates a huge difference in the ecology of the bay. However, on the flip side of that, look at Galveston Bay. Look at what exists there. Look at the channels, look at the industry, look at the boat traffic, look at the people, the population. It's still a world-class fishery.
It adapts.
In certain, so I try to hope that the fish will adapt in enough time to respond to those changes. So yeah, when you look at Galveston Bay and what exists there, and you compare it to what's taking place in other ecosystems that are similar, you gotta hope that it will somehow adapt and thrive. Because I mean, Galveston, I mean, it's got amazing fish there. I mean,
Yeah.
look at the people that fish there every day. And they still, I mean, I don't know. Would y'all consider Galveston a world-class fishery?
I mean, it's got numbers. Maybe not the numbers it once had, but it's got a lot of numbers that are consistent.
I would say it was at one time, but I don't know that it is. Now, as far as like numbers of redfish, I used to always say it all the time. I told you all the time, Dean. When I was fishing Galveston, late 90s, early 2000, there were more redfish there than there were down south. I mean, I think the numbers were better, but you just couldn't see them. And so that's why a lot of people didn't do the sight fishing thing there. That's changed. There's a whole lot more people dipping their toe into the sight fishing into things now. And there's a whole lot more pressure, as obvious from all the redfish tournaments. Prior to those redfish tournaments coming around, most people in Galveston didn't fish for redfish; they fished for trout.
And I guess, you know, back in the day, Greens wasn't invaded the way it is. The Brazoria Wildlife Refuge wasn't invaded the way it is now. A lot of those far away little corners. And then, you know, I was fishing in Matagorda Bay in the late 80s. You talk about the edge of civilization back then. The south shoreline of West Matagorda Bay was, you might as well be on another planet when you were there. And now, yeah, Crab Lake, those other little lakes that go off of the intercoastal, the old channel. What's the original? What's it called, Caleb?
Old River.
Old River. I mean, you never saw a soul in those places. And then, you know, look at that now. So I guess that it's exposed more because more people are venturing into areas that really weren't exposed back then.
I do like the, go ahead, Scott, you got something?
I mean, I've said it on here before. When I first started polling, there was 2 polling skiffs in Galveston. That was it. It was me and one guy he was a DEA agent that I got to know a little bit. And we were the only 2. And I very rarely ever saw him on the north side of the West Bay. And he just very seldom saw me on the south side. And the last time that I was going to fish Galveston, before I moved to Port O'Connor, I pulled up at that big Buc-ee's down there at Texas City, and there was 9 polling skiffs getting gas.
That'll do it. That'll do it.
I mean,
right,
that was the signal for me right there. It was like, man, this has changed dramatically.
Yeah. All right. So now for something completely different before we get back on this, Caleb, I'm curious on this. As I mentioned to Franklin, my sons are wrestling with this as well with little babies. For those of you with children, as he said, how old do they have to be before the old lady, and his words, not mine, will let me go fishing again? I'm starting to have mental health issues, and the boy's only 1 month old. I think this is a funny, good question here.
I didn't fish for 7 months when Cade was born.
Mm-hmm.
I can't say it's because the wife didn't let me. I was just tired.
Yeah,
because I stepped up. I was that boy's daddy. I gave him the foods at 2 a.m.s and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, no, I didn't fish for a long stinking time. About every response I've tried to make, like advice wise, over in the comments, for whatever reason, YouTube's like, yeah, not going to post that. They were talking about, the kids got to wear a life jacket on the boat and stuff. I pushed Cade in when he was like 3 and then whooped his butt for falling in, and I never had to worry about that again. And kids are no kind of fun at all to the dad until they're 3.5. So you've got that working for you, Franklin. The women.
So my middle son has created. I think it's pretty creative, and I think it's pretty good. He likes to go kayaking, as you know, Dean, and he cuts deals. He says this, whatever, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, I'm going to go fishing. The next Thursday, Friday, or Saturday, I've got the baby. You can do whatever the heck you want for as long as you want. So just cut those deals. And that baby is not quite a year yet, so she's still young. Just cut those deals, man. Say, I got this day, you get the next one, and just handle it that way. How'd you guys do it?
See,
Dean?
but John, you're making grandparent deals. You're making
no. He came up with it.
No, but you're making grandparent deals. You're hey, if I get to go fishing, then I'll watch the kids. When you're our age, or particularly like just had the first kid age, you're using bargaining for something way different than going fishing.
Well, that's true. That part is true, but hey, that's supposed to be assumed, isn't it? At least in most cases. How'd you guys handle it?
I mean, I always took the kids fishing, and
but
didn't give
like how long for you can just go?
Man, we had them little life jackets with that little strap under their butt. I mean, little toddlers with them. But I mean, I took my kids fishing, and I didn't give a shit what happened next weekend. I went fishing again.
I thought you were gonna say I didn't give a shit about what happened to them kids. I'm fishing.
Whatever happens.
And, I mean, the thing about taking kids fishing, when you do that, I mean, you just have to. It's not about you fishing that day. It's all about the kids. It just is. You're not going to go and do what you do when the kids are there. Kids are going to hate you. They're never going to want to go fishing with you. They're not going to have fun. Kids don't give a damn about that big trout either. No. They don't give a damn about that big redfish.
They don't
care. You can go to the pier and catch piggy perch, and the kids are going to be way more entertained than out there looking for that big fish. So
if you can find a pile of shrimp eating hardheads, that's how you take kids fishing.
Guarantee.
How you do
for
it.
Sure.
There better be something pulling on that rod every 15 seconds or less, or they're going to hate what they do.
And so whenever my oldest son, when he got to be, it was probably about 15 years old, I always kind of did father-son time. It's like, come on, let's go. And we would go, and we would either get some donuts, some corn dogs. I bribed him with snacks, with food. Mm-hmm. And then when he got to be like 15 years old, once he was getting all into his moody age, and then I told him we're going to go fishing, he gets all pissed off. I don't want to go fishing. He's like, I'm going to go, but I'm not fishing. And he turns around and looks at me and said, the only reason I go on these trips is for the corn dogs. And I was like, all these years.
He's still kind of like that, to be honest. He's still kind of like that.
Yeah.
Scott?
Yeah. I remember towing Nico all over. I towed that boy all over Lighthouse Lakes one day. He was in a little sit-inside kayak. He came out there. He's going to go fishing with us. He lasted, 20 minutes?
Yeah.
And then he curled up like a little dog inside his kayak and went to sleep. Yeah. I just tied him off to the back and towed him.
Then he's having the greatest time of his life because he's
having a ball. He didn't have to paddle. He didn't have to do nothing.
Yeah, but I guess and probably every kid has their own personality.
Yeah. Well,
And
I've taken all of mine out. Yeah, the girls, they fished a lot when they were little. The grandkids are fishing. Hell, Sadie caught her first fish at like 2 years old off the pier down here. Uh, one suggestion I can give to everybody who's going through that at the 2, 3, 4, 5 year olds, bring a 5-gallon bucket. And when they catch the piggy perch or they catch whatever, not a hardhead, but a piggy perch or one of those, throw it in a 5-gallon bucket. And when they get tired of fishing, they're going to stare in that bucket for hours.
They're going to play with it. Yeah.
And play with that fish till that poor fish is going to be dead by the time
Bring nap supplies and fully embrace the nap.
Yes.
Me and Cade were fishing the championship of a 5-part pro tournament. And about 9 o'clock in the morning, he climbs up under my mid tower, and I'm standing up on my burn bar, and I'm sight casting at fish. And I had a couple in the live well. He woke up probably he would sleep from 9 to about 10:30 every time we did one of these. He woke up and he came up on the mid tower, and he takes this big ass stretch. And at one point, I'm hooked up to a redfish that's like 9 pounds, and I'm yelling, "Cade, wake up!" Trying to get him to get down and get the net. Couldn't even wake him up. I had to climb down. I cussed the kid all the way to the bottom of the boat. Only time in tournament history that I had a 9-pound fish, and I'm cussing all the way down the boat. And I get the fish in the boat anyway. So a little while later, he comes out and he takes a big ass stretch and he looks at me, and goes, "How many pounds we have?" I was like, "We don't have anything. I have about 16 pounds. We have nothing."
Can't wait for the weigh-in. Can't wait. It's gonna be fun.
You think they're gonna give me another one of them trophies?
he's like, "You think they're gonna have corn dogs?"
with the little ones, something I discovered, that fish bites stuff.
Oh, those work.
Dude, it's money.
Mm-hmm.
I kind of poo-pooed on them for a long, long time because I was whatever. It's like gulp or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
And I use it out here on the pier. They
Yep.
catch catfish. It does not come off. It brings scissors to get that cut stuff off the hook at the end of the day because it ain't
Yep.
coming off.
Yeah,
It's
those
got
things are
some
good.
kind of- yeah, it's got some kind of little weave in there, and you can't
Mhm.
get it off the hook.
Mhm.
And we've taken it. We've caught catfish here at the pond on it, and run it down to the pier, down on the intercoastal, and they've caught every damn species under the sun down there.
Mm-hmm.
Used it on the boat. It's a whole lot easier than shrimp.
When I'm around Vaughn, I'm gonna bring me a piece of one of them little sour strips, and I'm gonna
Tell him it's a fish bite.
I'm gonna be like, "These are delicious," and eat it and see if I can't get him to try that fish bite.
Ah,
I'll
Now
let
that's
you
a plan.
deal there. And
Now that's a plan. By the way, I'm very, very impressed that you guys are committed to the bit with the hats. I mean, they're not coming off.
Very comfortable.
They're not coming off at all. Anyway, back to another part of that first discussion we talked about in the 20 years. Someone named Carrie Scruggs commented on here about the desalination plant that now
yes, she's
first of
you can't trust her. She's a troublemaker.
where does it stand? Is it a done deal? It's going to happen?
It's permitted, and I think the voters have to vote on funding. Still, they're arguing about specific locations. It's closer than it's ever been, but it's not a done deal.
So how is this different in terms of like what we were talking about earlier?
Different than what?
Like in terms of affecting the habitat and salinity.
Oh,
levels,
well,
et cetera.
this one has never been tested.
Mhm.
There's only 2 places where there's desalination plants in the lower 48 states. One's in California, one is in Florida. I don't know the specifics on Florida. I think it's around Tampa somewhere. Don't know the size of it. Really don't know the details on it.
Mhm.
But the desalination plant that's going to be built, it's going to happen eventually. I mean, it's inevitable. South Texas is going dry. Civilizations have collapsed because of no water, because of droughts. The Lake Corpus Christi, Choke Canyon are at a combined like 18% right now.
Way under.
Critical. So this whole conversation has been sped up because of the drought issues that we have. Everything has been kind of expedited.
Yeah. Mhm.
They've increased the flow of the Mary Roads pipeline that comes from Lake Texana other pipeline comes from the Colorado River. Corpus Christi gets water all the way from the Colorado River through a pipeline. They tried to drill wells. They weren't feasible. Many of these things. So the desalination plant, it's there. It is going to suck in hundreds of millions of gallons of water per day. That is how much water goes into this thing. Goes into the plant. It comes out sterile at the other end. Every creature, every amoeba, larvae, everything that goes in does not come out the other end. And yeah, it has not been tested.
What about the scum? Where does the stuff go that comes out of the water?
What's that?
Where does the salt and amoebas and larvae go?
Well, all the little creatures are killed because it goes through a superheated process.
Yeah, but what do they do with the waste?
So the wastewater that comes out the other end it's hyper chloride. It's salt. It's hyper salty. And so I had this conversation with a guy who was familiar with these processes. So Saudi Arabia, Qatar, over in that part of the world, they have huge desalination plants. And I was asking these questions, about what goes in, what comes out, and all that. And there were a lot of concerns about the discharge that comes out, the hypersaline stuff that comes out the other end. And the way he put it to me, he said that even though it gets a lot of attention, it's not the biggest concern because they're putting the salt back into salt water that's already salty. They're putting something back in that was already there. Even though where it comes out at this certain point, it is very, very toxic, but it disperses quickly. That was not the major ecological problem. The problem is what goes into it doesn't come out. The way the thing works is they draw in seawater, it's heated, the steam that rises off the seawater is fresh. Somehow that is collected, and then that is funneled off. That is the fresh water that is harvested from the salt water, and then what is left over of the salt and the wastewater goes back into the bay or the Gulf.
So what does the research say? There has to have been plenty of research done on this.
Well, the research says that hundreds of billions of little creatures that go in are dead.
Well, not only that, but I'm saying in terms of affecting the ecosystem.
It's detrimental to the outlook is not good for the ecosystem.
How so? Like, what can we expect? And Scott, feel free to jump in. I know you probably dug into this.
Well, I mean, it kills everything that goes in. I mean, I don't know how much more detrimental it can be. All of it's like the plankton, everything that the shrimp eat, shrimp larvae, crab larvae, fish larvae, all of those things are getting sucked into the machine and they're not coming out the other end.
And when Scott, I wanted to ask you about this because clearly, that's going to affect what shrimp are eating, what fish are eating, or whatever, closer to where the plant is, even though the water is, I don't know how far out they go to, to put some of this stuff back in the salt, et cetera, into the Gulf, but it's got to affect closer to where we are, where we're fishing.
A whole lot is determined by where they put those discharges, from what I gather of it. If they discharge it out into the Gulf, yes, it assimilates fairly quickly out there. But if you pump it back into the bay where that water's coming from, you've removed X number of gallons of water, you return salt, the salt content's got to go up. Now we're back to osmoregulation.
Oxymoron.
So once the osmoregulation kicks off, then that starts affecting everything. It can't, I don't see how removing that much water and putting the salt from that water back into the bays doesn't raise the salt content of the bay.
And so on that subject and Parkoff's question there about the productive talks about moving the intakes and discharges offshore, there are talks about that. They are not been productive. That is expensive, and that, they're looking at taxpayers funding this project. So when they started talking about this, when it started making the news big time 4 or so years ago, the price tag was think it was like for the taxpayers, it was somewhere in the $650 million range. Well, in the 1 or 2 years that they talked about it, when it came back to the next proposal, it had already gone up to $800 million. So by today's standards, as they continue talking and they haven't started building anything yet, it's going to be well over $1 billion for the proposed price tag. And everybody knows that the finished product is going to be ridiculously above the proposed tag. So if they come in at 1 billion, you're probably looking at 1.5 by the time the thing is operational. So the and Governor Abbott, you know, he's been down here. It's just a hot topic on how it's going to be funded. And there is still a lot of discussion about the intake and the discharge. So the location of them, the two locations, one is in the inner harbor in the Corpus Christi, above the bridge, way back there where the tankers park. There's just as many fish in that harbor as there is in any other water. That doesn't make it safer. It doesn't make it less impactful to the ecosystem. The other one, which to me is disastrous, and how the conversation, well, the reason the conversation took place and the reason it became an option is because the land is available, which is at Harbor Island, right there at the ferry landing. All of that land is owned by the Port of Corpus Christi. Port of Corpus Christi went on a rampage in the last 5 to 8 years of annexing or purchasing every swath of land that is available from Corpus Christi to Sinton to Copano Bay. Every piece of land that was available in this giant area is all owned by the Port of Corpus Christi now, which is why these refineries such as Exxon out in Gregory, all of that farmland, all of that. And so another thing that makes it easier for that to happen is this land is owned by one entity. They don't have to get 50 people to agree to sell their land. It is one purchase. And that makes it easy for them to either annex or purchase these giant swaths of land. And that they got the three things that are necessary in for industry is energy, land, and transportation. So we have natural gas that flows out of the ground in South Texas. It takes an immense amount of heat and energy to run these desalination plants. We have natural gas, South Texas. There's wells in everybody's backyard. I got one right out here in my yard. The right next to my cows. But and they have these giant areas of land that are easily permitted. It speeds up the process. And then they have transportation, which is all of the rails that come to Corpus Christi, Sinton, and such as that, which is why the plastics plant, Exxon, was built in Gregory in short order. And they have proposals for numerous other, not refineries, but chemical plants along that stretch of land beyond Gregory to Sinton.
Well, let's. I know our listeners are thinking of this. I'll start with Caleb, because Caleb hadn't weighed in yet, and I want to make sure everybody stays involved here because it's fun to talk about and obviously educational. What Dean and Scott are saying kind of paints a bleak picture, man. I mean, let's just be honest. So I'm wondering it. I know our listeners are wondering it. You know, what does your gut tell you about how this is going to affect what we do?
I'm thinking the tides are already low enough than use 100 million gallons of water.
I thought it isn't going to help. It isn't going to help.
If making a ditch wider and deeper is a problem, this seems like an issue to me. I can't say I'm overly qualified to speak on much of the terms.
No, I'm saying, so what does your gut tell you? Because I know what mine says.
Well, I'm about to start guiding in the Upper Laguna, and I'm hoping that Dean's screwed and I'm not. That's what my gut's saying.
How does it affect me?
Yeah, I mean, let's be serious about this.
Bleak picture, Scott. What are you thinking?
I don't see how it can go any other way. We need the water. When industry needs the water, I would like to see it done in the best way possible to not screw things up any worse. But I don't know. I don't know what the answer is. You just drive up and down 146 in Houston, and you'll get an idea of what Corpus is going to look like.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Well, I mean, I get that it costs money, but it seems like the way to do this is to put a plant 3 miles offshore with a pipeline running back into the land.
Yeah.
I mean, that
And
makes
so
more.
here's another interesting fact when it comes to water in our area. Had the San Patricio County water dude came to our Rotary Club meeting. He did a presentation on that's where I learned where all of our water sources come from, how many gallons comes through these different areas. So Ingleside, Corpus Christi, very industrial complexes. 70% of the water that is used in Corpus Christi, Ingleside, Aransas Pass, all of these areas is consumed by industry. It is consumed by the plants. 30% is residential for the people. We are now at level 3 water restrictions. Can't wash your car at home. You can't water your grass. There are restrictions on the 30%. So we got this dude, he's standing there and he's giving the speech, and I'm looking at this graph and I'm like, wow, okay, so 70% of this water is going to industry, and all of the restrictions are put on the citizens as if watering my grass and washing my truck in the driveway is going to compete with Chemours and Kiewit and these other these companies that are just, pouring pipelines of water into their plant. And, my question to him was, I says, well, what restrictions does industry fall under since we're under these strict guidelines? Oh, no, they don't fall under any restrictions.
Mm-hmm.
And he turns around, and there was a lady there that worked at one of the plants. She's an engineer at Oxy. And she goes, she was offended. She's like, what are we supposed to do? Turn off the industry?
Yeah.
And I was like,
how about pay for this? How about pay for this?
I mean, it's like, it's that or die when the water's gone, or move to somewhere where it rains.
Well,
So yeah, it was just very interesting that they put those type of restrictions on people when it is. And that was my point. I said, isn't watering the grass and washing cars like a fraction of what is used? And I'll let Caleb jump in here with the one other fact that I learned: more water is evaporated from the lakes than is used from the lakes. The evaporation rate exceeds what people use from the lakes. The leaks in the pipes, the leaks in the infrastructure, that it's an issue with every city, everywhere. They've been built so hard that they actually crank up the pressure in the pipes to compensate for the leaks. So the water runs out the leaks faster than the contamination can come back into the pipes. That's why we have so-called clean drinking water, that they don't allow it to backflow into the pipes. So more water is lost due to evaporation and leaky pipes than gets used. So quite a predicament.
Well, I like what Carrie said, and Scott says it kind of has to be done, but somewhere besides Harbor Island seems like a better idea to me. I still can't figure out why you'd put it somewhere where it's sucking water out of a bay instead of the ocean.
Right.
Ocean sounds cool to me.
The other thing that's interesting is, obviously, as we all know, politicians are going to politic. So I'm sure they're telling people, oh, calm down, it'll be fine because of this, 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 and this. What is their message when they say, calm down, it's going to be fine?
I'm a dipshit and I don't know what I'm talking about.
Besides that, maybe. Yeah. But they got to be saying something, like people like, Carrie and Dean and people that are affected immediately, on a daily basis. You raise concerns. How do they try to appease them?
How much money you think comes into AP, Rockport, Gregory? How much money you think comes in there on tourism for fishing and fishing related expenditures? And
I mean, I don't know what the
cost of doing something a bit smarter.
Not sure what the dollar amount is, but it doesn't compete. The Port of Corpus Christi, and this is another number that I heard, and it's probably been about 2 years ago. The Port of Corpus Christi generates $500 billion of industry per year. So if you think you can outlawyer or compete with $500 billion a year, you have all of these conservation groups. There's great people out there. They're relentless at challenging the permits and starting petitions. And I mean, there are people that absolutely inspire me with their ability to continue to fight, but it's a losing battle. It just
But
is.
what do they say? How do they try to calm you down? What's
Oh,
their
well, they
argument?
build you a baseball field. They build a park. They do the little things around town, and then they put a big billboard on it, and it says "Brought to you by the Port of Corpus Christi to make your life better."
Yeah. And as
While
Carrie said, she's heard folks from the Port of Corpus Christi say that the desal plant will have a, quote, minimal effect on the ecosystem in Redfish Bay.
They tell you it's raining while they're pissing on your head.
So that's the answer. Yeah, so that's the answer.
Well, I mean, that's
If it was raining, we wouldn't have this problem.
This is true. Exactly.
Nobody could pee on my head right now.
You're darn right they couldn't.
And we couldn't tell.
They could try. They could try.
And if they were, we couldn't tell because it's yellow.
Yeah, it's yellow. All right, let's get to a good fishing topic here, at least some that before we get to what Scott do and Caleb and Dean, because we've talked about a lot of ecosystem today. I think it's been very informative, but we want to catch some fish too. And this was a question I got. What's your approach, Caleb? I'll start with you. What's your approach? Because your approach might be no, thank you, but when you can't, quote, beat the crowd. In other words, you got a weekend trip, you got a trip booked, boats are everywhere, and you got to find something. A lot of our listeners are going to be facing a lot of crowds this summer.
Yeah, man, either get out there and get in line and drift, or get weird and get away from them. That's the only two options you got. Good news is when it's real crowded out there, you can drive around, and when you see people with rods bent over, you can go around behind them, put a piece of PVC pipe to market, and just drift right through there and have you a day.
That's old school.
I have a solution, but Caleb's not going to like it. You get up early and you get done early. You're out there.
The evening's better than early.
It's too hot.
Yeah.
I like the evenings though. I'm with you on that one, Caleb. Scott, what
it's
do you
too
do?
hot. The grass is floating. It's pain in the ass, but get it. Mm-hmm. But Caleb ain't getting up early.
I ain't gonna do it.
Scott, you've talked about this on and off, but you're going out and there's a lot of boats and you want to catch fish. What's your approach? How do you start?
First, I'll lower your expectations a little bit and just accept that you're going to have company. You can't get out there and get mad.
Can't go Brock.
Yeah, you just gotta chill out with it, because when I'm fishing on a weekend, I know it leaving the dock that I'm gonna have a lot of company around me, and I just kind of change my attitude. It's hard to do sometimes. You've got an idea, you've been fishing all week, you've been on some fish, that was too popular of a place and it's going to have boats. Like Caleb said, most of what I've done over the last few years is just get further away from everybody. I've done that by having the polling skiff and going into further and further back lakes and little bitty offshoot waters that nobody goes into. And then I got the bigger boat and started running the beachfront and going to burn some gas to get away from everybody on the beachfront. Because on a decent weekend with light winds, it's crowded. It's just as crowded as the bay is. There's a bunch of people going out there, but you got a lot more elbow room on the beachfront than you do in the bays. You got a little deeper water. Jetties isn't a bad idea. Getting out on the jetties, get there early, get your spot, get settled in, and the fish move up and down the jetties. So you don't really have to have a spot.
Yeah. Yeah, you don't have to move a lot either.
Right. Get you a place that has some good water movement, know what your tide is coming or going, which side you want to fish on based on that, and get set up there. I see people do it all the time on weekends. They go out there and they sit, and they will be in that same damn spot when I come back. And they're catching fish. It may not be what they wanted to do. They may not have, maybe they wanted to go wade some popular shoreline, but take what you can get on a weekend.
There might be brightly colored bikinis out there. There's a bunch of people.
There are. There are, man. It's almost jetty and near shore time. We're getting there. Although this weekend, windy Thursday, windy Friday, windy Saturday. But at least it's a southeast wind. Let's get to what you guys would do, Dean. Strong wind.
Have you
strong
seen
wind.
the wind? We got 40+ mile-an-hour gusts this weekend.
I just looked at it. I saw a 28 on. Well, that's Thursday.
That's 28.
Yeah, it ain't windy yet on Thursday.
Huh?
It ain't windy yet on Thursday.
It's just picking up.
No, that's sustained wind. It's going to be gust well over to the 40s.
That's what I think might bring some tide back, though. By golly,
It's southeast every day. It's just a lot.
Oh yeah. Well, it's going to be southeast from now till like September something.
Mm-hmm. So stay home. Take it easy.
Water. I just glanced at my water temperature. Damn. It went from 77 to 82 today.
Man.
Drifting is really tough in that kind of wind.
Mm-hmm.
What I do if I got to, I'm going to put the pole. If I'm going to fish from the boat, I'm going to pole down. I'm going to cast, pick up the pole. I'm going to use the pole to control the drift. If I'm going to, now that I'm all healed up and I'm walking again, wade fishing, if you can find a shoreline with the right depth that has some protection, wade fishing is the best option in 30+mile-an-hour wind. If you can find you a good spot.
That's what is going to be popular down in Matagorda and Middle Coast, isn't it, Caleb?
I'm just hoping it starts raining
Mm-hmm. Why?
because I got my hat.
I knew I set you up. I knew where you were going. You teed it up. I teed it up for you. So, but wading, it's wading season right now, and that's the way to go with this wind.
Now the wading's been getting better. I've been told the wading's been getting better, but with this wind, yeah. The trouble with Matagorda is you got to cross the bay to get to the protected side. There's no. We're going to run out of the dock, run down the shoreline a little bit, and find us a spot. You're going to get
a little bouncy. You get a little bouncy out there.
Yep, and it's too damn shallow to take the cut across in West Bay. So you're just gonna have to take your whooping if you want to go fishing this weekend in Matagorda.
That wind blowing that hard southeast, that water's coming up. It ain't got any choice. So it's going to rise up. So I would say that there's going to be some flood tides, and fish will be pushed up on the shorelines. I know the shrimp have been doing really well. Everybody I've talked to, while I was at the ranch, a lot of my guys, there was some couple calm days, and they were on a bunch of schools for reds up shallow, all chasing shrimp. So the shrimp are getting just big enough. That first hatch is done, and they're starting to move around a little bit, and they're big enough for the redfish to get interested in them. Those fish will move out into the bays before too long, or those shrimp will move out in the bays before too long. We'll have some good bird activity if this wind will allow the birds to fly. But Sunday looks okay.
Fishing has been good. I mean, my buddies that have been out daily are doing great here. I mean, but it's in between the ferocious winds. It's in between the bad stuff. Buddy of mine was out kayaking this morning, and he said he caught all he wanted to, man. I mean, he said he saw more than he could count this morning, but it was beautiful. We had less than 5 mile-an-hour wind and great conditions. And it's back to breezy already now, and going to be that way.
Scott's chomping at the bit to get out there. I can tell. You still haven't gone out offshore, have you?
No, I haven't gotten out there yet.
I had another buddy of mine over in what's it over there? What's that? Lamar. Over by Lamar. Lamar caught a Jack Crevalle last week. So there was
Jacks are in. This water temperature, once the water temperature hits 70, 72, the jacks are everywhere. So
and the seaweed
is at it, but it's 5.6. Waves 5.6 this weekend. So no, I'm not going out.
That would be a no. That would be a no.
That would be a big no.
So the sargassum is washing up on the beach too, which is, that brings all the little creatures, and it brings fish.
We ain't had much weeds in years.
Say that again.
We ain't had much weeds in years either. That's exciting.
I'd like to see some good weed mats this year.
We're gonna catch some chicken dolphins, Scott.
Man, go catch some dolphin, go get some triple tail, the ling hang out with it. When we get some good weed mats, it changes everything.
Good weed makes fishing great. I'm telling you.
I'm good with that. Good weed. Wait, what? We're still talking about the same thing.
It's probably been 3 or 4 years since
Mhm.
we've had any kind of weed lines like that.
Any good weed?
Yeah.
that's a stretch.
And
All right, what do you guys got? Go ahead.
The last time it happened, it got good, man. It was triple
Does
tail
get
everywhere.
good. No, I'm serious. I'm excited. What do you guys got going on, Caleb?
I just think about good weed.
Yeah.
We're Angler Unit tonight. What I'm really enjoying is watching Dean's pills start to kick in, because I'll see him lean back and kind of look off in the distance, and I can hear him thinking, "Man, this air tastes so good."
This is
And then he'll
all
like,
right.
jump right back into the mic and be like, "Oh, I got to talk about this though."
It's getting hot in here, man. It's hot in here, y'all.
No. Got a little bead of sweat coming down. Glad you got that hat on. So you got Angler U. Who's on it?
We got James Sanchez tonight. James is a marine biologist that works for the Hart Research Institute, a fishing guide, and he's been on the water the last several days. So James is going to have all kinds of good information for you folks over on the Angler U for those we see tonight. If you're not a member, don't join. Frankly, it's getting really crowded. It's getting way too popular. There's too many questions in the webinars. It takes me too long to get through them. So we're not looking for members anymore. Don't join. Don't even just don't do it. It's terrible. You'll hate it.
Got that reverse psychology working. I gotta join now.
I'm using my oxycyclic.
Whatever you do, don't hit that button right there. Don't touch that button. Don't
that button.
Don't touch it. Dean, and you've been catching fish. You're back. You're almost I'm sure you feel close to 100%, but you're not supposed to be out there as much, right?
Yeah, I didn't want to talk about it, just keep it a little secret. But I have been. Yes, doing great. Went to the ranch this weekend. I walked further, hiked further than I have in years. It feels good. I can't wait to start some wade fishing, man. It feels good to be able to stand up and do that. I'm sitting here by the calendar, man. May is almost full up, and I'm going to jump back in on May the 3rd is when I'm back at it. So, June has got a lot of days booked already. So if you're planning on a trip, it's time to get it on the calendar.
So, Dean, I took that Thursday, Friday off. I'm going to be on the water the 1st and the 2nd. If you want a driver,
May 1 and 2.
That's the Thursday, Friday, isn't it?
Yeah, I'll put you on the calendar.
No, I'm saying I'll drive you. Yeah, I'll drive you and then you boat.
Negatory. I will drive you on your new boat.
Okay, yeah. Hey, I really want to drive it, Dean. Sorry. Maybe next week.
Dean feel like some of them screws in a butthole would be clenched so tight.
And Scott, the funny one is Scott, because you've been wanting to take that thing out so long, and still waiting for the wind to drop, still waiting for the surf to flatten out a little bit.
And the only time it flattens out is when every time I take off for the ranch to go shoot photos, the wind quits.
Dead flat.
As soon as I get back, it's blowing 35. It's been going on like this for weeks now. And I even tried to switch it up on it, man. I made plans to go to the ranch, and then I was I'm not going to go this week. And then it started blowing. I thought, I'm gonna fool it. On my nature, I'm gonna do an end around.
The fish gods know better. They absolutely know better.
Said nope.
Yeah,
nope, can't do it.
Yeah. All right, boys.
We got some time on that contest. I got to get a bunch of folks.
When's it end? It ends in September.
May 31st.
Oh, May 30th, and then the awards is like in September.
Yeah,
October,
the award deal is usually in October, I think.
Yeah,
we got to get all our shooting done by May 31st.
All right,
and May 31 is the Flatsworthy fundraising dinner.
So that's anybody, I'm gonna try to get down there. Yeah.
Yep. Anybody that's in the Rockport area, it's a worthy event.
I'm gonna put that on my
and if you can't attend, just send your money.
Yeah, do that.
Well, that's what happened to me. One of our favorite listeners, old Dan Jack from New York, he's a big supporter of Flatsworthy, and he he bought a ticket and put it in my name. So that was awesome.
Hey, now.
Damn, you should buy us a table this year. Upgrade.
Yeah, you like my post on Facebook too.
Hey, I just put it on my calendar, Flatsworthy, May 31st. So I'm gonna try to get down there. All right, boys, that's fantastic. You're the best. Hey, thanks for Carrie, little production assistant right there.
We got her in here.
It was, I don't know.
She might have went Brock on some folks. I can see it. I can see it.
You gotta use her in moderation, man. She can get a little carried away.
Did you hear her hitting the keyboard typing?
Yeah, she's a show contributor, Carrie. Thanks for
No, but when it comes to that desal plant,
oh yeah,
she's yes, she stays up to date with what's taking place. She goes to the port meetings, and so yeah, she's a good source for up to date information.
Well, we're gonna follow up with it because I'm not gonna lie, man. I mean, I like to keep this thing happy and positive and catching fish and everything, figuring out good things, things to do. But I was kind of like, well, dang, as I saw this. And she says, as we get out of here, I was serving beers to you know who.
She keeps my koozie full.
All right. All right, guys. Really appreciate everybody joining. Very informative show today. Don't forget to subscribe to the podcast wherever you get your podcasts, especially Podbean, because you can catch them all right there. And of course, we'll be on YouTube as well. And join the Facebook group page. You can ask these questions. If you can't join us live on YouTube, we get to the questions. I got them all right here. I already got 3 in line for next week that we didn't get to. So we'll keep it moving. You guys have a great week, great weekend. Hope you don't get wind blown. Catch them up. We'll talk to you next time.
The wind ain't going to stop blowing until August since you bought that damn boat, right, Scott?
I know.